right, happy Monday evening, everyone. It is weather for Weather Geeks. The big story as we go into the second and third weeks of February will be warmth. But there's going to be exceptions to that rule, like today, and again this upcoming Saturday, which we will talk about in this video. But first, let's kind of hit on the major news story across our region. That, of course, the train derailment Friday evening in East Palestine, and the aftermath, including the controlled release today of some very hazardous chemicals to kind of try to avoid a big explosion. That controlled release, of course, did create a big cloud of smoke and debris mid to late afternoon today, and just like with the initial disaster on Friday, this was picked up on the radar. This plume was thick enough and contained enough particulates that the radar beam coming off of the Pittsburgh National Weather Service radar was able to pick up on this. And you'll notice that the plume only gets so high in the atmosphere. That's because we have a pretty stout, what we call inversion overhead. Today, this, if you're a real weather weenie, you may know that this is called a skew-T diagram. And basically, this is a way for meteorologists to kind of assess the state of the atmosphere going up. There's lots of uses for this. We use this trying to determine the atmospheric state ahead of severe weather situations. We use it to determine precipitation type between snow and sleet and freezing rain and rain, that sort of thing. We also can just do something basic like pick out a temperature inversion. So basically what we're looking at here is this is the atmosphere going up. This way is colder. This way is warmer. And this red line here is the temperature. So that red line goes in the colder direction for a little while, but only to a certain point, and then it actually reverses direction and heads in the warmer direction. So there's a layer of warmer air aloft up here. This creates that inversion. It's like a lid on the atmosphere, and it prevents extensive vertical mixing of air parcels rising. And so basically that plume of smoke hits the inversion and then just sort of spreads out because it can't rise anymore because it runs into that warmer air. You see things like this on a very micro scale if you pay attention to how a campfire behaves. The smoke only reaches a certain point and then it kind of disperses. Same idea here, just on a much bigger scale. Now this inversion height this afternoon was at about 3,000 feet. This will lower somewhat overnight, maybe down to 1,500, maybe even 1,000 feet. And again, anything that's floating around up there is going to be trapped by that layer, and so it's not going to keep on rising. This can be important. From our understanding, the chemicals that were released don't shoot very high into the air. The smoke plume does. The chemicals contained within kind of stay low to the ground, and so this inversion is not as important for that. It's more about the wind direction that becomes important for the kind of the hazardous chemicals. Now, the wind was pretty light today. Tonight, it becomes maybe a little bit steadier overnight out of the south-southeast, up to 5, 10, 12 miles per hour. As we get into the daylight hours on Tuesday, it becomes more of a southwesterly and gusty breeze. The wind out of the southwest tomorrow can be sustained at times between 10 and 20 with an occasional gust of 25 or perhaps even 30 miles per hour. This is ahead of a front, and behind this front, another wind shift tomorrow night into Wednesday morning out of more of a west-northwest direction. But that, again, will also be temporary because the wind will shift again by Wednesday night into Thursday morning ahead of the next weather system. We'll actually have more of an easterly wind by Wednesday night into Thursday morning ahead of the storm system that will bring us a pretty good chance for some rain on Thursday. We'll have more updates on that situation, of course, over the next couple of days. In the meantime, now that we're several days into February, we're into what we call solar spring. This is the 3 months of the year in which we gain daylight at the fastest rate. We didn't see much sunshine, of course, today with thick clouds around, but we gained 2 minutes and 20 seconds, give or take, worth of daylight today. And from now through early May, we pick up well over 2 minutes of daylight per day, peaking right around the vernal equinox in about 6 weeks, with a peak daylight gain per day of something like 2 minutes and 42 seconds. So the days are getting noticeably longer, of course, especially in the evenings. The sunsets have been getting later for a while now. The sunrises reached their latest point in the winter season only a few weeks ago. And so the daylight's becoming a little more noticeable in the evening as opposed to the morning, but that'll, of course, change as we go through time, and especially once we get to the return of daylight saving time in March, then you'll really notice the morning sunlight more and more. After we spring forward, of course. We spring forward, but then the days are getting longer so much faster that it's not any time at all before we have those nice early sunrises once again. All right, so our hourly rain chances peaking early to mid-afternoon on our Tuesday. This is not a washout Tuesday, but cold front heads our way, and there'll be a couple of showers starting around lunchtime and taking us into the afternoon. These go away tomorrow night, and actually we'll squeeze in a pretty nice day Wednesday. A mild day, we'll see a mix of sun and clouds. The clouds won't thicken up again until Wednesday night ahead of this next system. Then a pretty good slug of rain tracking our way, it looks like, overnight Wednesday night into Thursday morning. This is kind of an interesting setup on Thursday. If we get most of the steady rain out of here pretty early, we may get an opportunity for the sun to try to come out from west to east as we get into the afternoon. If that happens, boy, temperatures are going to be off to the races. We have 59 now in our Thursday forecast. With enough sunshine, I think 60, 62 or something like that is certainly going to be attainable on Thursday, a real spring-like day. And actually a pretty nice day coming up on Friday, not as warm, but still well above the average. One wintry, kind of February-like day in the forecast, that is Saturday. I don't think this is any sort of major system for us, but snow showers around Saturday. Might there be a small accumulation, especially on non-paved surfaces? Yeah, that's going to be possible. It'll feel and look like February, but by Sunday, I should say, we're back into sunshine. Any snow that managed to accumulate on Saturday will melt, and then next week has a chance to be even warmer than this week. There's a day or two next week where we could certainly get into the 60s. Right now, we have kind of two peaks, both on a Thursday. This Thursday and the following Thursday, 20 to 25 degrees warmer than the average. And this number next Thursday could be conservative. This is 10 days out, so our forecast is going to lean a little more conservative that far out. But the high-end potential for the middle of next week for a day or two will be temperatures well up into the 50s and probably into the 60s. I do think that the last third of February, and especially maybe the last week of February, has a chance at least of being a little more typical of the season. But I don't see any sort of sustained cold, more than a couple of days at a time, coming our way until probably we flip the calendar into March. And I continue to have some questions about March. Some of the modeling would suggest it's not so cold. Some modeling is looking pretty cold for March. So I remain concerned that we'll have February and March. Will it be severe cold or something like that? Too early to say. But I remain concerned that we're going to do a February-March flip-flop this year. We'll talk more about the longer range later this week on Weather for Weather Geeks. Thanks as always for watching. Make sure you're following me on all my social media outlets, and I will see you back here on Tuesday.